Hello, welcome to Neuschwanstein Castle, a place filled with secrets and mysteries from long ago, haunted by the unexpected death of King Ludwig II. Today I will take you through the author, the vision, and the construction of the mysteries laid inside this castle. We will be exploring who built the castle and why it was built, uncovering the secrets as to why Neuschwanstein is the most popular attraction in all of Germany. I am Ty Benchmer and I will be your guide. Growing up, Ludwig and his brother weren't treated well. His father and mother didn't like each other and never had any time for their children. Ludwig II grew up in Neuschwanstein Castle, where his father had constructed. He saw himself as the last of the Swan Knights, being that the swan was his favorite animal. At 18, he mourned deeply of his father's passing. He was very stressed and anxious about becoming king, because he was not ready. He was irresponsible with his finances and quickly squandered his wealth. At age 20, his kingdom was conquered by Prussia, but the people continued to support him because of his generosity. He hires Wagner, a musician he had greatly admired, to amuse him, and even paid all the composer's funds. The king believed his money would never run out, so he decided to use it for building his dreams into reality. The first building he constructed was Lindendorf Palace, a small but highly decorated palace for his relaxation. He built a lot. Most notable, however, are his castles. One of these stands above the rest, his greatest work, Neuschwanstein Castle, built on the cliffs overlooking his father's castle, Hohenschwangau. The goal of this castle was to make something so magnificent and massive that it would be incomparable to his father's castle. In 1868, the ruins of two former castles were cleared away to make room for Neuschwanstein, which began its construction in 1869. The castle was built by three chief architects: Edward Riedel, George von Dahlmann, and Julius Hoffmann. These architects admired the passion of the king. They enjoyed not having to stick to a budget, and this gave the architects the freedom and creativity to do what they wanted within their designs. However, the architects were furious when the king ran out of money and they weren't getting paid. After the king died and his architects left, the government of Bavaria turned the castle into a public museum and fixed up what was unfinished so the palace would be open to the public. There are many parts of the castle still being renovated to this day, as many people work to keep the place intact, especially the detailed artwork illuminating the walls, floors, columns, and ceilings. The castle was enormous, but was made only for the king. First of all, the throne room was arrayed in splendorous gold and marble, but lacked one important feature: the golden throne. The room was very modern in its design. Everything was only for aesthetics, though. The room's walls contain a collection of delicate paintings depicting a biblical array of scenes. The floors are coated in many animals. The balcony overlooks the great mountains and brings light into the room. The dining room contains great paintings of Wagner's operas. Although there were no guest rooms, the king bedroom contained all the splendor you could imagine, along with a magnificent view. It also contains stained glass windows of the family's coat of arms. Next, the Singers' Hall was one of the first areas to get extensive restoration because of the paintings. The Singers' Hall is laced in paintings of Wagner's operas and lit with candles and chandeliers. Although never used by King Ludwig II, the Singers' Hall has been holding a home to concerts since 1933, the 50th anniversary of the king's death. The kitchen contained a grill, hot water, a boiler, large stoves, and all the best of technologies Ludwig could get his hands on. Lastly, the castle had hidden staircases and rooms behind secret doors. The staircases were very important to Ludwig II, so his servants could get to places quickly. Ludwig II's plan to build the castle was to one-up his father's castle. His plan with the castle was to develop an embodiment of the ancient swan knights, being that the swan was his favorite animal. Neuschwanstein actually stands for the New Swan Stone. The castle was to look extraordinary, so it was built on the large cliffs to overshadow the city below. Modeling himself after the Longhain legends, Ludwig II saw himself as a descendant of the Swan Knights. Swan statues and decor have been placed all around the castle. Feeling that his father's castle was too small, the king wanted to make his castle as grand as possible, with all the modern appliances. He also wanted to live in a castle by himself, because he didn't like all the duties connected with being a king. In 1868, the foundation stone was laid on the site of two previous castles after their remains were removed. This began the construction of Neuschwanstein Castle, which would go on for far longer than anyone expected. The workers had a tough job of bringing stone and wood 600 feet up the mountain, but luckily they had steam-powered cranes to do the heavy lifting and pipes for the water. Although the journey was long, the workers had a lot of freedom, and many of them knew the king personally. They were happy to see the king because the king was not often seen in public. The amount of time the king was spending on his castle was causing the city to lose respect for him. More and more people were calling him Mad Ludwig. In Munich, the king was known as a spindrift, but the architects thought he was nice, so they admired him. They liked how the king was willing to do things by himself, instead of just completely bossing everyone around. Any bold architect would have loved to work with him because of his high imagination and determination. However, he would get very mad if something didn't go the way he wanted. However, many hated him because he would redo entire rooms if he didn't like it, and would always change his mind. A man from the nearby city journaled the entire construction process. The greatest mystery of the king is how he died. One day the government declared the king mentally ill, abdicating him from the throne and sentencing him to a small lake house. One day the king and his psychiatrist decided to go for a walk, and they never came back. Some say the king had drowned. His body was found waist deep in Lake Strandberg. Also, the king was a very good swimmer. Some say the king was murdered or committed suicide. What reason would someone have to murder the king? Had Ludwig really gone mad, or was it all just a cover-up? The mysteries will likely never be solved, but at least they're haunting realities, bring in better tourism. The mysteries have undoubtedly made the castle into the popular attraction it is today, causing people to come from all over and hear the stories for themselves. Through the ages, this castle has served some pretty cool purposes. In World War II, this castle was the largest hiding depot of Nazi stolen art from World War II. Most of the art was sent back to France after the war. The U.S. Monuments men found the art and sent 600 crates back to Paris alone. However, there are still some stolen paintings that remain in Neuschwanstein. Because the castle was never fully completed, it looks a lot different from other castles. And this provided the perfect inspiration for Walt Disney's castle. In 1934, the castle was featured in America's Life magazine. The castle has been visited by many important people, including Michelle Bush, Michael Gorbachev, and the Queen of Thailand. Due to these events, it should be of little surprise that Neuschwanstein Castle is the most visited attraction in all of Germany. King Ludwig's passion for his work caused this castle to go above and beyond in modern appliances. If only the king could see it now. Today we have taken a look at the author, the vision, the construction, and finally the mysteries of the castle, exploring who built it and why it was built. I hope this information has made you want to uncover the mysteries of the castle for yourself.